Everyone, I just want to do a quick recap of the game that was played earlier today between Praggnanandhaa and Gukesh. It was the first round of the Sinquefield Cup. And even though I don't do these sort of recaps almost at all these days, I found this game really interesting. And I thought I would just share my thoughts, especially because it is a pretty notable game in the chess world. Gukesh, reigning world champion, was taken down in a pretty convincing fashion. So first of all, I do apologize for spoiling the result of the game, but I think the way in which Praggnanandhaa won was pretty fascinating, and I'm still trying to like fully internalize this game for myself. But hopefully, I can explain some of the instructive ideas, and let's get into it. So the game started as a Nimzo Indian, which both players have played before. And I think the biggest surprise, at least from early in the opening, was Gukesh's time management. He took about 8 minutes to castle in this position. And I checked some of Pragg's recent games earlier, and I noticed he has played this E3 Nimzo a few times in the last year or two. So it could not have been like a huge surprise for Gukesh, but maybe he was not specifically prepared, at least for this game. And the players went into a line that actually kind of transposed into a Queen's Gambit accepted. If we check the database, there are a good handful of games in the Masters database. Going forward, the position actually became somewhat dry after queen takes d1 and rook takes d1 and bishop takes e5. And I was following the broadcast kind of on and off as it was happening. And when I saw that they reached this kind of queenless middle game position, I kind of zoned out for a few hours, at least of this game, because it just seems very, very dry and not the most exciting position. It's not a gambit. It's not going to be an aggressive attacking game. But after I saw what happened, I was actually very intrigued with seemingly how easily Praggnanandhaa outplayed Gukesh. And it maybe starts with White's next move, which I think is a move that almost everyone watching the video would not consider, including myself. I think the average chess player would probably be inclined to play b4 here, expand on the queen side, attack the bishop, and look to complete development with bishop to b2. But Pragg chose a very interesting continuation, bishop to e2. And I was digging a little bit, trying to make sense of this move myself, but also trying to understand this move on a level where I could explain it to a lot of the amateurs who might be watching. So bishop e2 at first looks very counterintuitive. Why are you just retreating a piece that is already developed? But to understand what's going on here, black does very possibly want to play b5 and expand with tempo. So bishop e2 is kind of preemptively preparing for if black plays b5, it does not come with tempo. And I dug a little bit here to see if black plays b5 in this position, then white can actually go into a line where b4 isn't necessary. And there's a nice sequence here, which I found with the engine, starting with knight to d4. And here we actually see the purpose of the bishop on e2. It's ready to come to f3 to hit the rook on a8. And if black develops naturally with bishop to b7, then white has a nice way to seize initiative, move knight to b3, hitting the bishop. And now if the bishop moves back to e7, there's knight a5, which is a bit annoying for black. And if bishop to b6, there's a very strong move, pawn a4. And white is actually getting some nice positional play on the queen side. This pawn is a target. If takes and then takes, then a pawn could be a target. And if b4, there's a very nice move, pawn a5, to attack the bishop. Let's say the bishop moves, knight a4, and this pawn is weak. Knight c5 is coming, bishop d2 is coming. and white has a decent edge in this position. So a lot of this was kind of supported by the engine, but I thought it was very, very interesting given that Pragg played this move relatively quickly. And yeah, maybe he was aware of these ideas where if black plays b5, then there's ways to exploit black's setup. So Gukesh did not play b5 here, but rather played knight to c6. And then Pragg plays b4, and then bishop to a7. Now, one interesting point I want to make about this game is it's really not obvious what Gukesh's losing mistake was, but it's possible that bishop a7 was one of the key mistakes of this game. Now, the bishop should have moved to e7, and we'll see why bishop a7 was such a bad square for the black bishop. But on a very basic level, the bishop is not happy staring at this pawn chain. And on e7, it controls some more key squares that can be relevant later on. So Pragg develops bishop to b2, rook to d8, and then we see knight to e5, which is a very nice move. Takes advantage of some tactics. The knight cannot take on e5. It is tied down to the rook on d8. And even if Gukesh includes takes and takes, the knight can still not be taken because rook d8 will lead to mate. So going back, white is putting on the pressure, and Gukesh does develop his light square bishop, bishop to d7. And now the next move from Pragg I really like because at first it looks counterintuitive to trade off his most active piece for black's saddest piece. But this is one way of making progress in the position and transforming it into a bigger advantage for white. With knight takes e7, white is getting the bishop pair, and basically once black loses light squared bishop, white's light squared bishop becomes a lot more powerful, especially with it coming to f3 very soon. So after knight takes d7, Pragg plays a nice move, knight to e4. And here we see one of the downsides of the bishop on a7. It's not helping control the d6 square. Black would really like to teleport it back to the center. Of course, that's not possible. And now there's some concerns about knight d6. So knight b6 is played, which is a kind of ugly move, blocks the bishop, but does try and neutralize the d file. But white continues, knight to c5. Really nice post for the knight, pressuring the b7 pawn. And from this point forward, black was on like the pure defensive. Plays rook b8, Pragg takes, black takes, and then bishop to e5. Now he explained his thought process in more detail in the post-game interview. And for anyone that wants to dig into this game more deeply, I do encourage you to check out the St. Louis broadcast. I will leave a link below with the timestamp. But Pragg went on a very interesting explanation of why he played bishop e5 and not the immediate pawn e4. Because he was mentioning he wanted to play pawn e4, which is a nice move, preventing knight d5. But he didn't quite see a huge advantage after knight to a8. And he shared some very interesting line, bishop e5, rook c8. And at first it looks like white can take and take and take and win material like this. The rook can't move to defend the knight because the bishop controls these squares. But there's bishop b8. And I checked this with the engine, and engine actually supports this for black as a way to come back and be okay in the game. So Pragg was calculating very, very precisely. And instead of going for this line, he did not play e4 first. He played bishop e5 first to provoke rook 8, and then he played e4. And this was actually one of the most precise ways of playing. I did some digging here, and I was wondering, like, why not rook c8? But then this tactic works. Knight takes b7, takes and takes. because if bishop to b8, then there's bishop to d4, and the knight is hit. The knight is not on 8, but yeah, both knights are attacked, and white is winning one of them. So the tactics work out quite nicely for white in these lines. And for this reason, black had to undevelop the rook back to its starting square. And then e4 was played very quickly from Pragg, which is a very simple prophylactic move, preventing knight d5. And then we're reaching a point where Gukesh becomes nearly paralyzed. Like, these pieces are so disharmonious. And for the rest of the game, white was in full control. Gukesh tried to kind of squirm and untangle, but Pragg really never loosened his grip. Yeah, here we see knight c8, undeveloping all the pieces, and white just has so much activity, puts the rook on the d file, bishop d6, and now bishop e5, very nice move, taking advantage of the pin, bishop e7, trying to hold on to everything, but then bishop c7, and white is just maximizing square control. Knight c6, knight takes b7, going up a pretty clean pawn. And at this point, yeah, there's really nothing for black to do. It might look like rook a7 will skewer these pieces, but then there's rook c1, and white is not losing material, and black is just crumbling. So Gukesh tried g5, then Pragg plays very calm move bishop f1, which I was trying to understand, but I think the point is he wants to play rook c1, but he doesn't want knight d4 to hit the bishop. So yeah, just preemptively moving the bishop to a safer square. g4 was played, and then rook c1. So after knight d4, black's not attacking anything. Pragg plays a4, and now it's a 2-on-1 majority on the queen side. F6, e5. White continues to make progress, plants the bishop on d6, and yeah, white is just steamrolling. Trade on d6, rook d1, rook b8, knight c5, and in this position, Gukesh throws in the towel and resigns, given that, yeah, this pawn is incredibly strong. The rook is on the d file, helping support it. If knight takes b5, this doesn't really work. Just d7 is simple enough. Preparing to queen, and yeah, rook d8, then we take the knight on b5. So, it's a very nice game by Praggnanandhaa. I think a very nice illustration of just overpowering positional play. I did check the quick Lichess analysis of this game, and Gukesh made 0 mistakes or blunders, but he did make a few inaccuracies, and that allowed Pragg to capitalize and win a great game to start the Sinquefield Cup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this game. If you have any questions, leave them below. And I do encourage you all to follow the Sinquefield Cup, which is happening in my hometown of St. Louis. Features a lot of the top players from around the world. Should be a lot of fun chess action for the coming several days. Again, I'll leave links to the official broadcast on the St. Louis Chess Club YouTube channel. And if you like this recap, let me know if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon.